All right, Lonnie Stevenson, RiverScene Magazine. We are here at the home of Jay Coombs, and we are going to take you on a journey over the next 10, 15, 20 minutes and really lay some groundwork for some early Havasu history of how things developed, the timeline. We've got some maps and some references and just a whole boatload of information. Jay is our main source here. Jay's connection is his dad was part of Trico Engineering and was involved in much of the early phases of the planning of what would become Lake Havasu City, and then the actual engineering work, survey work, and a lot of the
construction management.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to start our story off today with how this all came together. McCulloch visited Havasu in, was it 1956? Is that what we have established?
He established his outboard motor test facility in 1956.
And that was based out of what we call Site 6 today.
That's correct.
Okay. So at that point, he was aware of Lake Havasu. There was some land that was owned in the area by the Sprats at the time. Mm-hmm. And in 1958, he made a purchase of that property.
He purchased that property from the Sprats. They had a fishing camp here, a fishing resort.
They were actually from Needles, isn't it?
Out of Needles, and it was roughly 3,000 acres that they purchased. 160 acres of it was out on what is now the island, which is the peninsula at that time. And the other acreage was checkerboarded throughout what is now the city. None of it contiguous, but 4 full sections, as near as I can find.
Okay.
4 full sections and several partial sections that made up something over 3,000 acres at the time.
So we're going to reference and start off with a map here that shows the checkerboard layout. And again, too, these parcels, when we say checkerboard, there wasn't, other than connecting at the corners, there was no continuity.
Correct.
So the land itself had some value, but he couldn't do anything with it.
No legal access.
So that comes along here in the future. Mm-hmm. Looking at some of the notes that your dad left, 1962. Now, this is going to be before there was an official land purchase, but 1962, it appears he had his eyes on these other parcels around around the area that is now Lake Havasu, and he had his eyes on acquiring those.
Well, McCulloch had envisioned his building a city on this property, and he knew that he had to fill in the blanks and acquire more property to do so.
So again, this is going to go back. He acquired then the rest of the parcels in August of 1963.
August of 63, almost 13,000 acres.
Okay.
Which filled in all the checkerboard, so to speak, and then some.
So Havasu myth number 1 is not all the land was purchased at once. He bought it over the course of 5 years.
5 years, that's correct.
From 58 to 63.
Right.
Okay.
And being an aggressive nature, once he had acquired the 3,000 acres from the Sprats and had the vision to build the city, he started to work.
Yeah. And we've got the maps
he
we're going to show.
Work, and he did as much work as he could possibly do prior to the auction in 1963, so that if he were the successful bidder, he could hit the ground running and develop fast.
What I find interesting is you have this book that is from the United States Department of Interior. It's dated January of 64. And again, in one of the maps that is referenced, the area that we see the outline of Lake Havasu is designated as a urbanized area.
Correct. The Department of Interior has already recognized our area as an urbanized area per this map, yes.
Right on. All right.
Which is a government map.
So we're going to go to the next map and show you some of the original aerials that were taken of Havasu. So now this is a collage of a bunch of aerial photos.
Correct.
And the first photos that, as far as we can tell, according to the legend, is July of '63.
Correct.
And that's centered in the, for lack of a better area, today we refer to the McCulloch corridor, that initial downtown area and residential areas north and south of it.
Correct, and including the peninsula, but yes.
And again, we're still talking peninsula. We're not an island yet.
Not an island yet. Right.
Okay, so we've got these topo maps to then start laying out the initial tracks of Lake Havasu.
Well, this is a topographical photograph from which, you can generate topographical maps.
Okay.
And from there you can do your design and engineering work. McCulloch intended to do Lake Havasu City in terms of planning and engineering and design work and construction all in-house. C.V. Wood, McCulloch brought C.V. Wood Jr. on board.
Okay.
He was a master planner in his own right and a good one. And they did a lot of work before the land auction, a lot of preliminary design work and what have you. But my dad's company, Tri-County Engineering, was really phased in over about a 2-year period, really. At first, they had McCulloch, or C.V. Wood, more specifically, C.V. Wood had Trico do a feasibility study on whether it made sense to build a city here, period.
Yeah.
And Trico did that study and came back with projected that it could be done. In fact, they met with state and county officials, actually, to see politically if it could be done. And yes, it could be done with perhaps a population of 54,000 people.
Again, original plan was for 54,000.
Original plan was for 54,000 people.
So again, Havasu myth number 2, if we're keeping score, a lot of people say Havasu was never built or designed for this many people that we have today. It was, but we're at capacity.
We're at capacity
for that original design. All right, so 1962, your father's company, Tri-County Engineering, was hired to do some consulting work, but at the time, an outfit called Marco
Engineering.
Marco Engineering.
Well, actually, Trico was hired to do the feasibility study by Marco Engineering.
Okay, so they were hired by Marco.
Correct, which was C.V. Wood's company, but under the umbrella of McCulloch. McCulloch purchased Marco Engineering when C.V. Wood came into the McCulloch fold. And C.V. Wood's team came with him. I mean, there were others. So anyway, but Marco continued to be a viable engineering firm in its own right.
Okay, so Marco is a standalone with C.V. Wood, came into the fold when C.V. Wood joined forces with McCulloch.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So we've got the aerials for the original, starting some of the feasibility and started some of the initial drawings, and they're penciling out some ideas, and then August of '63, we've got the sale. McCulloch purchased the remaining roughly 13,000 acres from the state of Arizona.
Correct, which gave him the land he needed to proceed. Yeah, he wanted to get as much work done as he could. Just took the gamble, actually. Took the gamble that he would be the successful bidder. And so they did just as much work as they could prior to the auction, betting that they would win the auction, and they wanted to hit the ground running and develop and sell lots just ASAP.
Now, I have no reason to base this statement, but I'm going to bet it wasn't much of a gamble.
Probably not. I think there were two bidders. I think there were two bidders, and the second bidder. There are stories or rumors that the second bidder may or may not have been legitimate, but everybody at that time, and I remember this from going to high school here. I went to high school in Kingman, so there was a certain atmosphere. Everybody thought McCulloch was crazy. It's not like everybody wanted this land. It's like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? Never happened. Lake Havasu City in Kingman in those days was a joke.
And if we really want to go back in history into the 60s in Arizona, Arizona was known for its land fraud deals.
Correct.
And this was considered at the very beginning another one of those land fraud deals.
There were far more skeptics than there were.
And in reality, I mean, today when you look at the map and driving in, it's like we're still out in the middle of nowhere, right? I mean, it's still a lot of desert. Yeah. You come over the hill, coming, from the south or the north, and all of a sudden you see this big, beautiful lake, and it's like,
you can't even come in from the south.
Well, not at the time, right?
At the time, it was a dead-end road. We were at the end of a dead-end road.
Crazy. All right, we're going to go to the next map here.
All right.
All right, so now on this next map, which we don't have an exact date on, but just kind of piecing things together, we think this is somewhere, he's purchased the land, so we're probably late 63, or maybe this could be before the purchase?
I think I would venture to guess, and it is a guess, it's an assumption of mine, that this map was done, or this plan. This is not a map. This is a plan that was done prior to the land purchase.
Now,
on a concept of what we might do should we be the successful bidder.
And again, some of the unique features of the map are going to be the downtown corridor, that's where the focus was at. We had a road we're going to show on another map of McCulloch Drive coming up the circle, and these original tracks.
Right.
Here's another tip for our viewers that may not know and may not care, but it's kind of a cool fact, is those original tracks, the 3-digit tracks, were all designated. That's Marco Engineering that was involved in those designs.
That's correct.
Then when Tri-County takes over, it becomes 4-digit tracks.
4-digit tracks, that's correct.
So just a kind of a point of reference for...
Yeah, but they did phase in Trico over a period of time. And like I said, they did the feasibility study. The next step was they wanted Trico to do all the final maps and get those recorded, and do all the surveying and stake the lots. So even in the 100 series lots that Marco designed, Trico still had a part.
Okay. All right. Now, we're going to fast forward, or not really fast forward, because we're going from October 14th to now the end of the following month, September 30th. The IDD is formed, the Irrigation Drainage District.
Correct.
And that was huge for the development of Lake Havasu, correct?
Yes. The IDD basically financed the construction of Lake Havasu City through bond sales. They're a legal entity. They were Havasu's first government. The Irrigation and Drainage District, they operate really to help farmers and agricultural interests. That's how that's how it's designed. So there are limitations on what the Irrigation and Drainage District can finance in terms of what kinds of improvements. As I said, IDD was designed to help the farmer build a road, drill a well, run a water pipe, run a sewer pipe, build a road, not necessarily pave a road, but build a road. Things like luxuries like curbs, sidewalks, street lights, those kind of things, absolutely not. No way that the IDD could finance improvements like that.
So McCulloch's using the IDD to help finance the development costs of his lots, which help keep the costs down initially. For some of the early residents, part of the IDD was called the sod farm out on the peninsula at the time.
Well, that's what legitimate, if I can't pronounce it, that's what, yes.
That's what made it legitimate.
The sod farm was key because that's the farm.
That was the farm for Lake Havasu.
Exactly, that's the farm.
And again, the key point, and you touched on it briefly, I just want to make sure everybody grabs it, is that IDD in place had restrictions. It was a huge benefit to the city, but the restrictions were you could put in wider roads, which they did to help with part of the flood control, but it did not allow for them to put in sidewalks or street lights.
No. But on the other hand, if I can make a point here, all the right-of-ways, they did design this city for a population of 54,000 people. So the right-of-ways of all the streets and roads within Lake Havasu City are wide enough that if you wanted to, you could widen the road, curb, sidewalk, street lights. The street lights go on the same. You go out and find your water meter out front. That water meter is sitting on city properties within the right-of-ways.
All right, let's go to the next map here.
All right.
All right, so on this next map, it is dated October 7th of 1963. So the IDD has been formed. They are laying out the initial outlines for the tracks and the roads that are going to be in those tracks. Again, the highlight is going to be the road coming off of the peninsula. No channel, no bridge, none of that yet. On up past the famous Wheeler Park and the circle that's a tribute to C.V. Wood and his little staple. On up to the original Havasu Hotel, which is now the site where the City Hall is. But that's where everything based off. Again, October 7th, 63, and here in a few short months, December 7th, the first plane load of people is in town and they're out looking at lots.
Yeah, so just to recap, in August of 63, they buy the property that they need. In September 63, the IDD is created and it means to finance the development. And on December 7th, 1963, the first Constellation lands with buyers and the first lots are sold.
And the fact that we would love to dig up is how many sales happened from that first flight, but that's another rabbit hole.
These are the tracks that were a part of that. They had 10 tracks ready, 10 tracks of lots ready for sales. December 7th, 1963.
And again, going in numerical order, track 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, on up to 110. Lots of interesting stuff here. Of course, again, there is at this point, no proposed development downtown around Wheeler Park in the area. Down there, the Safeway area, the area down where Ross is at, Taco Bell, none of that's developed yet. The original commercial area on this map is the area on the corner of Smoke Tree and McCulloch and the famous clay pools in that district there. Okay?
Yep.
Now, this map again is showing this is the first phases of the development. However, building was somewhat restricted back then. FHA was the big financing mechanism. And people couldn't do FHA financing at the time. Again, we're going back into the 60s.
That's right.
Because this area had yet to meet FHA standards.
Correct.
So then a big push was put to get that infrastructure here on the corner of Smoke Tree and McCulloch so that they could then develop those FHA tracks, which we're going to refer to here coming up.
Right. I believe that the first FHA track was track 111 and sits right here.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to the next
They
map.
call it the FHA track. This map's dated, or this plan. This plan's dated October 1st of '63.
October 18th. So it's one of the preliminary.
And again, it's a Marco design, but it's obvious to me is this was a preliminary design that didn't happen, and it looks to me like it might be maybe intended for north end of town. I noticed we have Industrial Boulevard here that doesn't look anything like it does today. Here's a Crosby Boulevard that I don't think exists at all.
And then Swanson Boulevard
here's
here.
Swanson over here.
To the
Here
east.
we do have, they did know that the state of Arizona was going to build a new highway through town. New Highway 95. This one here being the old London Bridge Road. This is old Highway 95, which is now London Bridge Road. This representing the new highway, or what the alignment they thought the new highway would be at the time. So Lake Havasu City was designed pretty much from the onset, knowing that the state of Arizona would be building a new highway.
Although construction didn't happen for several years after that.
I don't think Highway 95 opened until the early 70s, 72 or 3. Or I didn't live here at that time, so I'm not sure.
But I guess the fun piece of this is it's something that didn't happen, and we've tried and we can't even place where this little proposal was.
Right.
But it's fun to look at.
You know what? These are section numbers. So actually, if we got a section map out, we might actually be able to overlay where they had intended this. But I think it's North End.
Yeah. All right. Next map. Okay. So now on this next map, this is really mind blowing because this shows a beach that doesn't exist.
No longer.
But it was in the original plans.
Correct. We used to refer to this as State Beach. It's now, State Beach is essentially the south entrance to Bridgewater Channel today. Bridgewater Channel starts in this area here and continues in a northeasterly direction to the London Bridge, which is sitting. Well, here's McCulloch Boulevard, so the London Bridge is sitting about here, so Bridgewater Channel is going through here. So State Beach doesn't exist, but at the time this was drawn, London Bridge wasn't even a thought.
And this is February 3rd of 1964. The one piece that we do know is this parcel here off of McCulloch that we can refer to today that is now the Isleside condos.
That's correct.
But other than that, there is nothing else here that exists today.
McCulloch Boulevard. They show you a little tiny piece of McCulloch Boulevard, and.
But again, 64, we hadn't even thought about buying the London Bridge yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool.
Today's Rotary Park would be here. Body Beach.
Well, and if we were going to go down another rabbit hole is actually the shoreline and the terrain outlet on this map is going to change when they actually do the channel.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the conditions of the agreement with the state of Arizona that finally allowed that to go on.
Right.
They had to, every surface acre of land that they took out and created another surface acre of waterway, they had to shift it over. So
they had to mitigate that. And they did that by taking the excavated material from Bridgewater Channel, and a large part of it went to fill what is now, to create a new beachfront, basically, to create what is now Rotary Park, which sits right in here. But they had to For every, they had for every, as you said,
They couldn't increase the surface acreage of the lake.
they couldn't increase the surface area of the lake per their agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation.
So whatever they created in the channel had to be
Filled
up from the land. And they did it both on the north and the south side,
They did.
building out both beach areas.
Right.
Very interesting. All right, we're going to go on to the next map.
All right.
All right, so again, this is not a map, it's a conceptual, dated 64. Land sales are going hot and heavy. We can see those original tracks along with some other ones that have now been designated, and then we can see the outline of some of the new tracks, including
The golf course.
the golf course.
Yeah.
Now, the other piece of this too is, which is fascinating, is track 111 and 112, which is referred to as the Smoke Tree track. We can see, as going down Smoke Tree Boulevard, there is some development and some houses beginning to show up on this map. So,
And that being the so-called
The FHA
track, right. Right. Marina is shown here. There's some marina. Foster, George Foster developed that, of Foster Freeze.
okay.
It was later sold to Richie McCulloch, but George Foster.
Oh, Foster Freeze. There's
Foster
another rabbit
Freeze.
hole to go down, buddy.
He developed that.
It also shows the nautical.
Well, you know, Woody brought in corporate sponsors. He did this in Disneyland, too. It's no accident that there's a Swanson Foods.
Ooh,
Okay?
that's a new one I hadn't heard.
Yeah. So Foster Freeze. Anyway, Woody, he was a promoter.
Wow. One of the other things that I want to point out, we kind of skipped over, is when we went from the topo aerials and then some of the original development, talking about the IDD. The other thing that was a huge priority with the development of these tracks was flood control.
That was the priority.
Okay.
That was the priority. Havasu is basically built on a 5% grade. We have mountains to the east. Flood control dictated the design of this town in terms of washes, roads. That's why we have what people refer to as a spaghetti.
Right.
Those are actually, all our roads are engineered to deal with flood control, number one.
And not just the location of the roads, but the slope and
The cross section.
the cross section of the roads
right.
was designed to be the channel for the water.
To hold more water. They call it a W section. I know you see it mostly on the avenues, and the reason you see it on the avenues is the avenues today have been improved to full width, curb to curb, and include curbs. And the low flow, what they call the low flow line for light flows of water, is actually 10 feet off the curb or so out in the street. And that's because there's a W section. And the reason for that is if you do a cross section, top of curb to top of curb, and figure it out, that street is going to carry a lot more water than if you just had your typical 2% slope and a curb on each side.
And we
that
had
keeps-
nowhere else to put the water.
And that keeps it was designed to keep the water in the washes and or in the streets and out of your house. So the real estate and the lots tended to be high ground, and the streets tended to be below lot
Because
grade.
we have no underground drainage system like some of the larger metropolitan areas where the water can divert into culverts or storm drains and go out unseen to wherever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of our runoff still to this day, I think, goes into the lake.
Yeah. I don't know. All right, we're going to go to the next map.
This is the golf course. This is dated September '64. Is it?
Yep, September of '64.
Yeah. And that's pretty much as the golf course sits today. I mean, you've got Coma Boulevard. You've got your clubhouse sitting here. This being Coma Boulevard. This being the clubhouse. So this would be north to my right. But this is the first golf course.
Very good.
Off of Coma. Again,
Still Marco.
still Marco design.
All right, we're going to go to the next map. Okay, so this next map we're looking at is a general land use map from, what was it, 1969?
1969.
And it's really just kind of again, just a quick overlay of the different zonings and the tracks and predominantly what they are zoned, showing some of the commercial zoning. But again, too, it's not all completely dialed in.
Not yet. No, there's still some areas undeveloped. But it does show the high school site here.
Okay.
We have the industrial area down here. I think the McCulloch plant was sitting in here. Is this
Yep, industrial.
industrial? So the McCulloch plant would be sitting right here. Here we have Wheeler Park in the commercial district. Here's Main Street, or McCulloch Boulevard, Main Street. Here's the hotel site, which is
Right.
now City Hall.
Fascinating part is still that southern Southgate district that they refer to now is not fully developed, zoning set. It's still a work in progress. Again, this is 69,
Right.
so they weren't quite at the finish line yet, but this just kind of showed the progress of where they were at that point. The interesting fact is they did include the bridge.
Yeah, bridge is there.
Right on.
Yeah, this is 1969, so we knew it was coming.
And this is a map from Holly Development Company.
Right.
Very good. All right.
All right.
Let's go on to the next one. All right. So this next map is dated August of '71. It shows about 90% of the city now mapped out, but there are still some tracks and some areas that, according to the legend over here, the planning is complete, or there's some that isn't even started yet, but they still have some final revisions and
Correct.
recording to do. And most famous, I guess, is going to be the track 2278 over on the lake side of the highway. That is the area where the cemetery is, and that area.
Yeah, so these areas represent yet to be developed, in planning. Many of them in planning, and many of them not at all, nothing at all.
Fascinating stuff. You go back and really, we're at 71, so everything is pretty well laid out, and we are only 8 years from raw land.
Yeah.
And we've come this far. I mean, that's incredible to think.
They move fast.
They
move fast.
right. All right, so this next map is kind of cool because it's not specifically Lake Havasu, but it's an area map showing Arizona, Nevada, California. Shows Havasu as a little red blop here, but there's a couple of really interesting pieces here. Number one, I guess I'm going to point out to the south, we've still got a dotted line for proposed Highway 95.
Right.
So we're still dealing with the only way in and out is 95,
Right. And
coming from the north.
And this is dated February of 1969.
So the interstate isn't in, or the highway isn't in to connect Parker.
And there's no I-40. It's Route 66, two-lane road. No I-40. To the north.
I don't remember that.
I do. I rode the school bus all the way to Kingman every day on that road.
I guess, yeah. So, I mean, Route 66, and it shows Oatman and the connection there, but so they really followed the same outline.
Historically, Route 66, the first 66, was this alignment that went through Oatman.
Okay.
Okay. Then which I don't know if you've ever gone from Kingman to Oatman, but
Oh, it's a great drive.
it's fun. This this was a bypass. I don't know what year it was built, but it was then designated as Route 66, and this is the route that you would travel then from Havasu to Kingman.
So again, the fascinating point for the early high school students like yourself, we didn't have a high school yet.
Right.
And it wasn't just a bus ride up Old Highway 95 to the interstate, it was a bus ride on Old Highway 95 up to Old Route 66
Correct.
to Kingman
Correct.
for an hour drive.
If you were in a car, but not in a school bus.
Yeah?
Oh yeah. In the wintertime, the high school kids didn't see Havasu by daylight
Wow. Wowzer.
on school days. You get on the bus, it was dark. You get out the bus, it was dark.
I had a vision.
Yeah.
I had a
Because we had a
vision.
few stops. We stopped and pick up kids in Yucca. Havasu Heights, there were a few. There were 2 bus stops in Havasu. The main stop was at Claypools.
Okay.
And then from there, the school bus went down to Site 6 to the trailer park, picked
Okay.
up kids, and then it was north.
Up the highway.
Up the highway.
Wow. Again, just to further.
There were, well, there's a couple of occasions that I did get on the school bus at Claypools. I got off the school bus at Site 6 and went boating.
Oh
But
my God.
That's another story.
That's another pitcher of beers we're going to have to
That's
have.
another story.
Again, just showing
But-
that, again, going back into the 60s, we're still 69.
Yeah,
Land fraud is still a popular theme
Right.
throughout Arizona.
yeah.
And what could be more ripe for land fraud than this
Havasu was
14,000 acres, 15,000 acres out in the middle of
right
nowhere
at the end of a dead end road.
at the end of a dead-end road.
Right.
Perfect land fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. All right, we're going to go to the next map.
Good place to hide too.
Oh, all right. We have the next map from 1980, and there's some really cool points that I want to talk to everybody around. We've got Arizona State Highway 95, we've got Mesquite, and we've got McCulloch Boulevard, and we're going over the bridge, and we got the channel.
Right.
But we have Mesquite Avenue over here that didn't maintain Mesquite Avenue. It became London Bridge Road.
Correct.
So this is the area where you're going to have the Holiday Inn Express, you're going to have the English Village, and all the development there. You're going to have the Havasu Landing pickup point for the
Right,
boat.
right.
And then we're going to have in the parcel here, we're going to have In-N-Out and Del Taco and that stretch of development. Yep.
This was called Crystal Plaza back then. I think it's London Bridge Plaza now.
And the map even references Crystal Avenue as it gets over to here, and then also London Bridge Road. So there was a lot of moving parts as far as street names, and I think part of it was logistics on just trying to, how does it flow?
I find it interesting that London Bridge Road neither goes over nor under the London Bridge.
Interesting fact number, what are we up to, 20?
I don't know. But you would think, but I think that was on purpose. That was deliberate.
You think the London Bridge Road was at least to get them to, they extended that just to get them to here to the village?
I really don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
The other thing on this map, it shows the City of London Arms, the 1 acre that was originally deeded as part of the agreement, but as far as we know, that is no longer in place. This is again all the area that is.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the City of London no longer holds that acre, and I'm not familiar with the circumstances.
And again, 1980 on this, the resort has not been built yet.
Correct. Yeah. London Bridge Resort be sitting here. Javelina Cantina, the Heat Hotel be sitting here, Chagru's would be sitting here. These are the original condos that McCulloch Jr. and Kenny Koenig developed. This was the first build here.
The aisles.
The aisles, which I think included the tennis courts and what have you.
What had the fitness centers and the tennis courts.
Tennis club and all of that.
Yeah.
That's this area here. And then condos and what have you. The screws, and then there's the mall, and all of that is all in this area here.
Fun stuff.
Yep.
All right, well, we have reached the end of our little journey today with this last map from 1982. And it really highlights what is now the island area and just kind of shows the land uses around the island. A little bit of here, but I think the main emphasis on this was the Crazy Horse campgrounds and the different pieces within the island.
It really shows the state parks holdings and the concession areas that they have. This concession area here being the Cove, which is now a Crazy Horse campground. Then there's a buffer, and most of this is undeveloped along the north shore of the island. To this day, is still undeveloped. But you come around here to Site 6, the old McCulloch Test Facility sitting here.
Okay.
Here we have, that was Burford's Trailer Park, now is Beachcomber.
Beachcombers.
So Beachcomber Trailer Park occupies this. The Islander Resort occupies this. This is all leased. Government owns it. State land, it's all leased. Here's the recent exception. This is the acreage that the state of Arizona just auctioned off, and is there's a proposed development in the works for this. What is shown here as a golf course will be developed by a developer. And over here we have the Nautical Inn sitting in here. This being the marina. And here we have, this would be London Bridge Beach.
Yep.
And up here, I don't know, what do they call this area? Is that part of London Bridge Beach?
Well, that's going to be part of the parking lot area.
That's the parking lot area.
Yeah, where the dog park is.
Exactly, yes, yeah, because...
then we got the Heat Hotel there on the corner.
Javelina,
Yeah.
right here.
Interesting thing that I want to point out is it's called Golf Course Beach. Again, we're going back into what did we decide this was from
82.
82. So it had not yet been renamed Rotary Beach. It was referred to as Mud Shark Beach.
That's correct.
Commonly.
Yeah.
In this map, it's Golf Course Beach, but it now is going to been renamed and is now Rotary Beach.
Right.
Yeah. Lots of interesting stuff just to see the old development and where things have gone. This buffer zone here too, we'll just highlight that is the second bridge location and where it's coming in and going to tie in to the boulevards over here. Very good. Well, my friend, that was fun. We have got more rabbit holes to go down. Stay tuned here on RiverScene Magazine because we've just got to the early development. We haven't got into, well, we got to do the pissing match, Fowler.
Right.
That's going to be fun. And we've got some other rabbit holes to go down and show viewers just some of the early Havasu history, how things developed, and kind of paint the picture of how quickly things have gone. Not only did McCulloch start off very fast getting this developed, but I mean, we're going on a rocket ship right now on this town. So
yeah, there can be a lot of changes with the second bridge going in. I think you're going to see a lot more happening out in the island in the future.
Yep, I think
there's a lot of shoreline. The state of Arizona.
And we're no longer that little dot at the end of the highway anymore.
No. Things have really changed.
Again, Jay, thank you very much. We appreciate it. for all of you, thanks for hanging in there. We appreciate each and every one of you. We thanks all the thumbs up, the love, the likes, the stars, all the interactions. And of course, we love being your #1 source for all things Havasu here in Lake Havasu. For Jillian and an entire crew here at RiverScene Magazine, I'm Lonnie, and we hope you have a great day, and we're going to see you on the next video.